Let's sing it out together this morning. Come on. I raise a hallelujah in the presence of my enemies. I raise a hallelujah louder than the unbelief. I raise a hallelujah. My weapon is great day to be here, amen? Well, I tell you what, it's going to be an awesome day. We are honored to be able to have a guest speaker with this morning, Brian Fleming, who's going to come and share his story and just lay on our hearts what God has laid on his heart to share with us today. Hey, if you were new with us, we want to say that we are honored that you chose to be here today. We're so excited that you would come to worship with us at Lifeway. We're going to continue. It's going to be a great morning. But before we do, let us just decide that we are going to give him glory and him glory alone this morning. We are here for him today. So let us just become one voice and just praise his name this morning. Let's continue to sing. There's a grace when the heart is under fire. Another way when the walls are closing in. And when I look at the space between where I used to be and this reckoning, I know I will never be alone. There is another in the fire. Standing next to me, there was another in the walls, holding back the seas. Should I ever need reminding of how I've been set free, there is a cross that bears the burden, where another died for me. There is another in the fire. All my dead left for dead beneath the waters. I'm no longer a slave to my sin anymore. Should I fall in the space between what remains of me and this reckoning? Either way, I won't bow to the things of this world. And I know there's no other name but the name that is Jesus. He who was and still is and will be through it all. So come what may in the space between all the things unseen and this reckoning. 'Cause I know I will never be alone. Fire. weapon may be formed, but it won't prosper. When the darkness falls, it won't prevail. 'Cause the God I serve knows only how to triumph. My God will never fail. Yes, my God will never fail. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a victory. For the battle belongs to you, Lord. I'm gonna see a victory. I'm gonna see a with a melody. You surround me with a song of deliverance from my enemies, till all my fears are gone. And I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. From my mother's womb, you have chosen me. Love has called my name. I've been born again to your family. Your blood flows through my veins, and I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. Oh, I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. I am a child of God. I'm no longer a slave to fear. I am a child of God. Father God, we come before you this morning, and I pray that each and every person in this room has that hope. God, that we can say, I am your child. And because of that, because that we have put our trust and our faith in you, that we have made that decision to follow after you and your will for our life, God, that we know and we believe that we are no longer in slavery of this world. God, I pray that we know that there is someone always beside us. That we find hope, that we find strength in knowing that we are going to see a victory, God. Because the battle is yours. God, I pray that we are in this place today and we come here open and humbled and ready to receive what you have for us, God. That we would not be closed off, but God, that we are willing to hear what you have to say. God, I pray that we know that when everything is falling apart, God, that we can find our strength and hope of who you are. And God, I know we are going to get to hear a great example of that today. God, I pray that we don't shut you out, that we don't close you off, God, but we let your spirit move in us this morning. And we are willing to let you work in us, God, so that we may leave here differently, so that we may leave here and be able to lead a change in this community, in this town, in North Texas, God, in this state, throughout this nation, God, that you would raise up a people that all we want to do, God, is to give you glory and to spread your name and your joy and your peace. God, fill us this morning. Let us draw closer to you and let us give you all the glory. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Students in the room, United Weekend is right around the corner, and we are so excited. I got to tell you, if you are a parent or a student in the room and you are not familiar with United Weekend, it is only, seriously, the best weekend ever. You will not want to miss this opportunity. Parents, this is an opportunity for your child to say, I love going to church. This is going to be the best church function they will ever be a part of. And on top of it, they're going to be poured into so much spiritually that this could be transformational for them. Hey, my daughter is like begging me, please, Dad, can I go to United Weekend? And unfortunately, I have to disappoint her because she's only in 5th grade. But if you have a 6th through 12th grade student, you do not have to disappoint them. In fact, you can be Parent of the Year by going and signing them up for United today. They're not going to want to miss this. They are going to be charged spiritually. They're going to be empty physically, and they're going to be begging you to go back next year. I promise you that. United Weekend takes place February 14th through the 16th. It's only $135 for the whole weekend. That's all inclusive. It's going to be an incredible time, but don't delay. The last day to sign up is February 2nd. And so make sure that you go to our website, lifewaysalina.com, and sign them up for this incredible time, this incredible weekend. And I promise you, they're going to have a blast. I wish I was 16 again. I would go. I promise you that. Hey, one more thing before our special speaker comes, and that is we have a big God-sized vision for Lifeway Church this year. We want to see 75 baptisms take place right here in this church. 75 people whose lives are being transformed because they heard the gospel and placed their trust in Christ. 75 people who might have trusted Christ and have never taken that step of faith. And so we want to make sure, we want to give every opportunity for that to happen. And so we have two incredible opportunities for you. It doesn't matter if you trusted Christ and you're just never taken that step of faith and you want to talk more about it. Maybe you're just curious about this whole baptism thing. Maybe you just got a bunch of questions that you need answered. Well, we have that opportunity taking place right after this service through these doors off to the side in our summit room. You'll have the opportunity to ask those questions, explore this thing called baptism. If you say, well, you know what, I kind of got lunch plans after church today, no problem. We got another opportunity for you on February 9th. You can go to our website today, sign up for baptism class, make sure you're here on February 9th after the second service, and you can ask those questions as well. We want to make sure that you have an opportunity to take the next best step of faith for you, no matter where you're at. Now, would you direct your attention to the screens as we get ready for our lead pastor to come and introduce our honored guest speaker today.
Yeah, well, good morning. Good morning. My name is Josh Price. I'm the lead pastor here at Lifeway. Y'all having a good morning? Awesome. Hey, we are really excited. As many of you know, we're in the middle of a series called Habits. And in this series, we're trying to help you make small changes in your life that will end up making a massive difference. Maybe it's time you get rid of some things, some small things in your life that make a massive difference. That's our whole goal in all of this. And as we were talking about this series and planning it, I got the privilege of meeting Brian Fleming and his wife, Jamie. And he said, you know what's interesting, Josh, is there's always the time of the year, at the beginning of the year, when we're trying to make New Year's resolutions. He says, I got a question for you. What do you do when you're trying to do that and your world around you is getting blown up? And I was like, I've never heard that question before. What do you mean? And he started to tell me his story, and it just blew me away. And I said, we've got to get you to come speak to our congregation. He said, well, that's a good thing, because that's what I do. I've been doing that for the last 12 years. He said, I'd love to come do that. We said, well, we need to get you up here. And so we are so honored to have someone like Brian Fleming coming to speak to all of you today. And I want to read this to you so I do not mess it up. This is who Brian Fleming is. He served as a team leader in an infantry platoon with the U.S. Army's 10th Mountain Division while fighting the ground war in Afghanistan. After being wounded in action, he spent 14 months undergoing burn treatment, reconstructive surgery, and rehabilitation. He's a Purple Heart recipient, and he's now an author and speaker, and his mission is to help people win the battles they face in their own lives while continuing to grow in their faith. And so, if you would you just welcome Brian Fleming to the stage with me? Thank you.
Wow, this is great. You know, in 4 years as Army infantry, not one time did anybody ever applaud when I came into work. Yeah, I've been doing this for about 12 years, like he said, and no one's even tried to shoot me yet either. That's also an upgrade. That's pretty good for a guy like me. Because my last job was Army infantry in Afghanistan. And a lot of those people there didn't like me. A lot of them did, a lot of them didn't. But it was great to be here. Thank you so much. You know, today I want to talk to you. Oh, by the way, I noticed real quick, your drummer's the only guy behind Bulletproof Glass. Is he famous and I don't know it? Because I'm a huge fan of Bulletproof Glass. It's awesome. It's saved my life. But what I really want to talk to you about today is how to stand firm when everything around you is blowing up. Because, let's face it, we all get blown up in life, don't we? You don't have to go to Afghanistan or any war zone to get blown up. No matter how old you are, if you're a child, a teenager, an adult, a senior citizen, whatever, everybody gets blown up. Everybody gets hurt. There's a million ways to get hurt in this world. But what do you do to get through that? A lot of people struggle. Everybody struggles to an extent with how to get through what they're going through. And I really just want to share today with you some things I've learned about getting through devastating circumstances that hopefully will relate on some level to your life if you are going through something. And if you're not going through something, that's awesome. But I promise, bad things are probably going to happen at some point because that's life. As Frank Sinatra was famous for saying, that's life. People say, Brian, why do bad things happen? I don't know. I'm not God. That's life. Bad things happen. So what you do, how you respond to the things that happen in your life, I think is actually more important than the thing that hurt you. Because how you respond is what determines your future and the path that you go down. And you're either trusting God or you're not trusting God as you're going down that path. In fact, Jesus was talking to the disciples in the Bible, and he was talking about how their grief will turn to joy. Because those guys went through some pretty bad stuff too. A lot of people think if they become a Christian, you'll get rich and you'll get happy and nothing will ever go wrong. If you ever hear a message like that preached, there is a side to Christianity like that. It's just not the whole story. Read how the disciples died, and you'll go, oh, there's some commitment here. Yeah. Some of those prosperity preachers are forgetting some of the disciples and how they went out. But my whole point with that is this. This is what Jesus told them about turning their grief into joy. It comes out of John 16:33, and it comes out of the Amplified Version. He says, in this world, you will have trouble. All right, but take heart, I have overcome the world. I tell you these things so that in me you may have perfect peace. That sounds pretty nice, doesn't it? Some of you could really go for something called perfect peace right now with what you're going through. It's not even imaginable. He says, I told you these things so that you may have perfect peace and confidence. Be of good cheer, which means to take courage, be confident, certain, and undaunted. I have deprived this world of the power to harm you and have conquered it for you. So we all go through these things in our life. Some of you have been through divorce. I've never had that, thankfully. It's like the one battle, I think, of all my friends that I haven't had to fight. I've married a woman from Texas, and y'all make them good down here, so I'm very fortunate. She's sitting right over here in the blue shirt, too. I'm from Michigan, so everybody here calls me a Yankee. All right, whatever. I'm just here eating your food, marrying your women, and buying your land, but I'm not here to take over. But, I hit a nerve there, didn't I? I'm a transplant. I think that's what they call me, too, transplant. But we all go through stuff. Whether it's a divorce, whether it's somebody stabbed you in the back, you thought somebody was your friend, and then you found out they weren't. Or maybe it's financially, things just turned upside down, and you're just going through this war economically trying to get back on top. Sometimes you get a bad diagnosis from the doctor, and it looks like this entire thing called life as you know it might be over a lot faster than you think. Or maybe one of your loved ones is sick, and you have no power to make them better, and all you can do is live on a prayer, as Bon Jovi says. All you can do is, sorry, I grew up on classic rock. All you can do is live on that prayer and hope to God something miraculous happens. And by the way, that happens a lot more often than you would think or that you probably hear. But God has the ability to heal the things in your life that are broken. And I want to share some of my life with you today, not for the sake of projecting my story on you, but for sharing with you what I learned through it that hopefully applies to you. And I want to share a story with you that is actually I think it's going to blow your mind a little bit. And it's also going to alter your perception, even if just slightly, of the challenges and the suffering that you face in your life. But before I tell you that story, I want you to understand where exactly it is I'm coming from, because I didn't read about trauma or tragedy in a book. Much like many of you, I've had to live out my own battles and fight through and somehow hope to God that I make it through. And God's been faithful in my life. I've had a great woman of 14 years of marriage we just celebrated, Jamie. 14 years, and she stuck through everything with me. And by the way, we're not just married. Some people are just married. We're happily married. That's an important thing. And God has blessed me in that way. And that dives into one of the points I'll make, but basically, I served with the U.S. Army's 10th Mountain Division in Afghanistan back in 2006. And I see some young faces in here that were saying, wow, that's before I was born. Or that was like right after the War of 1812, right? Like, no, not really. That was recent, I think. Yeah. Well, I was there in Afghanistan, and about a month after we arrived there in March of 2006. A month after we arrived, April 18th, we ran over a double stack of anti-tank mines that were buried in the road. That's my vehicle. blew it up, set it on fire. One of those mines is designed to destroy battle tanks. We hit 2 of them at once. And I'm happy to report nobody died that day. We had 2 guys who were injured, but they returned to duty within the month. So very, very grateful for that. And that was about 7 o'clock in the morning, and it was not the best part of waking up. No coffee drinkers in here. Take that joke out of my bit. There you go, take a note. But here's what's interesting. My mother's also in the audience today. She's often mistaken for my sister. It's been happening since 10th grade, and it still does. We were on this mission, me and my 17-man platoon. We were stranded for 2 days out there in the Arghandab province in the mountains in Afghanistan before reinforcements were able to get to us. That's how far away they were. So that's why you carry a lot of ammunition, because you don't want to run out. But the day we did get back, my mother had written me an email the day we got back, and she basically said, hey, Brian, this might sound kind of odd, but a couple of days ago I had this strange, intense feeling to pray for your protection. Now I thought, wow, that's kind of cool. We just got blown up 2 days ago. I'm thinking to myself, I didn't tell her what happened. I thought, man, that something happened that would certainly encourage a little extra prayer, is what I told her. I said, we're fine. And, you learn a lot through a lesson like that, through an incident like that. And I learned that day that God tells women everything. Yeah. Even a dude's going, amen. And you're a lot older than me, so you know. Yeah, guys, you're not going to get over on a woman for an extended amount of time. Like, he just tells them. They know. People call it women's intuition. I just say God tells them everything. And so when it comes to Mom, I try and stay on her good side, keep those prayers in my favor. Don't make her angry. But here's the thing. I say that as a joke. But actually, I'm not joking when I say God tells women everything. I really believe it. This is the same vehicle. That was my back seat right there. My door blasted open. But a couple months later after this explosion, another explosion took place. And what happened basically was I was on my way to Kandahar Airfield, the main base in southern Afghanistan, when a minivan pulled out in front of my vehicle. And so he was going slow. So my Humvee, we passed him on the left-hand side like you would do out here on the road. I was in the front passenger seat. And as we got right up next to him, I was from about me to this stand right here, that minivan exploded. It was being driven by a suicide bomber. And I woke up that day in a ditch on the side of the road in Kandahar. I was burned and bloody, 2nd and 3rd degree. And what I didn't realize is that my wife, a few weeks earlier, was back home praying I would be home in the end of July, specifically because there were rumors going around that we're going to come home in the end of July or get extended for 90 days in the end of July. July 24th, suicide bombing. Woke up on the side of the road, burned and bloody, had no idea where I was. July 27th, 3 days later, I arrived at Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio. The end of July. So I have a good wife who prays for me. I just ask her to be a little bit more specific next time she is thinking of me. Because it happened. And my unit got extended for 90 days, like the following week after this happened. So it's like, wow, crazy. This is actually what it looks like right here. That's my door blasted open. And that hurt. That's some bulletproof glass. You can see it's still intact. I told you it's good stuff. I woke up on the side of the road right there. That's what's left of the suicide bomber's minivan. I was born and raised outside of Detroit, Michigan. I like to think that wasn't made up in Detroit. Not that it would have mattered. But I am happy to tell you that, if somebody wants to do something insane like that, okay, well, he was the only one who died that day, the suicide bomber. So I'm just like, hey, whatever, buddy. Like, we all came home. We were messed up a little bit, but we all came home. It's pretty insane, the world we live in, that people will do something like that. This is me about a day and a half later, and there's a worse picture that I did not bring because I know we have some younger people in the audience. If you go to blownupguy.com, that's my website. Just made sense. And so I got blown up. I'm a guy, infantry simple, So if you want to see the really bad picture, it's on there. But this is me about a day and a half later, and they took my picture. And that picture was actually on my military ID card for like the remaining 14 months of my enlistment. So every time I went through the gate at the base, I had to show them my ID card. Of course, my face healed, and they would always look at it and look down at me and go, "Dear God, what happened to you?" And after about a dozen times, I just started telling them I was allergic to suicide bombers and they were bad for my skin. Clearly. And this is my left hand. They actually had to do what's called skin grafts. And they actually had to scrape that skin off my face and neck with razor blades when I got there. I thought the pain was over when I left Kandahar. I thought, hey, the blast, everything, the worst of the pain's over, right? Sometimes in life when you think the worst is over, it's actually not. And I will never say this phrase ever again. Boy, gee, things could not get any worse. Don't ever say that. The one thing they can always get is worse. And when I got to Brooke Army Medical Center, the nurses looked at me and they said, hey, Sergeant Fleming, we're going to do this as quickly as possible so it'll be as painless as possible. It took about 30 minutes. They all pulled out pliers and pinchers and razor blades. They had to get the dirty, burned skin off my body or I would have died of infection. They didn't put me to sleep for it either. They don't do that because they don't want you to slip into a coma. And so they said they'd do it quick. It took about a half hour, but it seemed like an eternity. So I actually prayed to die in that moment. A lot of people don't want to talk about, the moment they gave up on life. No man wants to. But I have no pride in this. That was the point where I said, if I can just be unconscious, I'll do anything. My wife will be fine. I didn't care about anything except being out of the pain. And so I got through that. And then the doctor comes out to me later, and he says, later that night, he says, hey, we're going to have to skin graft your hands and face and neck. Now, they ended up not doing my face, but at the time, he said they were going to. And then after that, he did something really dumb. He told me where they start taking skin from. Some of you know this. They usually start with, how do you say this in church? They take skin from your backside. And then they take skin from there and they place it to other parts in your body. He said he was going to put it on my face. I'm like, dude, I just came from Afghanistan. I've had a hard enough life. Like, my wife will never kiss me again, man. Like, come on. All those names I was called as a kid will be true, and I can't live with that. I'm thinking it's the drugs in my system, but he actually said that. And then he said, yeah, we'll put the skin on your hands too. I'm like, great. So if you shook my hand today, don't worry, that's not where the skin came from. It actually came from the front of my legs, which is a little bit less weird, but not really. My wife always teases me for having leg hair on my hands. But I guess, yeah, she's brutal. But if a suicide bomber tries to kill you and blows up 3 feet away, and you end up surviving, and the worst you walk away with is leg hair on your hands, that's a pretty good day in my book. Then there's this next picture here. Yeah, same hand, a little messed up. People ask me how hot it was in Afghanistan. I just tell them it was 10,000 degrees the day I left. Then they see the picture and go, oh, okay. That's my wife, Jamie. Like I said, we've been married 14 years. She stuck with me through all of it. And here's the thing. Me and Jamie got married 3 months before I went to Afghanistan. So if there was ever like the odds of us making it were against us, it was against us. And again, we just celebrated 14 years. And again, we're happily married. So I got me a good one, and she's always been there. This is actually, I'll only show you this. This is me getting what's called a Purple Heart. It's the most unwanted award in the military. If you don't know what a Purple Heart is, you basically have to get blown up, shot, or stabbed by the enemy to get one. So we call it like the enemy marksmanship badge, just to have a little fun with it. My buddy Jay Redmond, he's a Navy SEAL. He got shot like 9 times in an ambush. He calls it the Slow Mover Award. He didn't get out of the way. And we're all like, come on, Jay. We know you're a Navy SEAL, but you can't outrun bullets, buddy. But I only show you that picture to show you the next one because in Texas, they give you a Purple Heart license plate. You may have seen my truck outside. It's right out there. And I thought, what should I put on my Purple Heart license plate? Maybe to have a little bit of fun with this. Well, a suicide bomber tried to kill us all, and he was the only one who died. So what I said was, nice try. I thought that'd be funny. Maybe some people are offended. I don't know. I think it's funny. I'm like, hey, nice try. I should have given him 2 thumbs down. I don't know why my thumbs are up. But crazy, right? So if you want to connect with me on social media, you can do that there. And I want to tell you something. If you go to freemissionmath.com, I got something free there for you. Here's the thing. I meet a lot of people who see me do what I do, and they go, Brian, I feel like God's calling me to something, but I just don't know how to take my first step, or I don't even know how to get started. And maybe it feels crazy, it sounds crazy, but I feel called to it. Well, if you want to know how to take your next step, there are actually strategies in the military that we use to get stuff done. and it's also actually biblical. And so I outline what that is very simply in that. So if you feel like you're called to something, you're not sure what to do next, go download that thing. It's easy. But, all right, I got all that out of the way so I can tell you what I really want to tell you now. Because I realized, having been in that medical center, in and out of it for 14 months, I realized that there were certain people who were able to bounce back from the thing they were going through, whether they were missing arms, legs, burned beyond recognition, missing eyes, arms, ears, whatever. I mean, I meet people everywhere. They grew up in an abusive household, and they deal with post-traumatic stress the same way a guy like me would coming home from Afghanistan. Our pain is what actually ties us together. A lot of people think, they look at somebody and go, well, that person doesn't know what it's like. They didn't go through what I went through. They can't help me. Wrong. When I was in Afghanistan, we lived in the mountains, up and down the mountains every day, back and forth, fighting Taliban. And we had these men and women in these warplanes and these war helicopters. And some of them are even women. Women fly Apache gunships, by the way. Hell has no fury like an American woman in an Apache gunship. Yeah. They don't call those missiles Hellfire missiles for nothing. It's because they're hot. We had them flying over top of our battlefield. Here's my point. When we got into bad situations, we could have said, hey, those pilots, they don't understand us. They've never been on the ground like we are. They can't help us. We're not going to call on them. We're not going to take their advice. That would be pretty dumb, wouldn't it? Yeah. Because they can say, hey, you can't see this, but over that ridge line right there, there's 250 Taliban. There's 17 of you. Don't go up that hill. That's really good to know. But every day in our lives, we suffer silently by ourselves, and we don't ask for anyone's help. I mean, in a room this size, there are probably at least 4 or 5 people who statistically have contemplated or attempted suicide. I do resilience training for the military all over the world. Every audience has them. And here's what happens. When you get to that hopeless point, people do that, or they think that. They make that decision because they think the suffering will never end. What they don't realize is that if you just talk to somebody, even if they don't know what you're suffering from, they might actually have the answer you're looking for because they haven't been affected by the things that have affected you and gotten you to this point in life. So I take advice from everybody. Now, I'll be honest. Most of the advice I get is bad. People try to be good, but they're not always competent in what I'm trying to do. But when you go through that much advice, you find the stuff that just sort of clicks. And you go, that was it. And it was worth going through all the work and trying to find the answer you were looking for, or what was God trying to tell me, to find that one thing that actually clicked and helped you. I realized that the men and women who were able to get through a lot of the worst circumstances that you can either imagine or not imagine, whether it was military and war or anything else in life, extreme trauma and devastation. Josh has been talking about habits this past month. There are 3 things that I realized that some of the most resilient people in the world all have in common. And I want to share those with you today. The funny thing is, I actually had these in my life, but I didn't know it. I was one of the guys who bounced back. I didn't know why, though. When people would ask me, Brian, what's the one thing or what helped you? I really didn't know what to tell them until I started learning some things. The first thing I learned is that people who are able to get through extremely devastating circumstances is that they have a sense of meaning in their suffering. Either they're suffering for a cause greater than themselves, or they're suffering and they believe that something greater is going to come from it. That second one was me. After they scraped my skin off with razor blades and I was laying in that hospital bed that night, all the evidence said nothing good can come from this. And why would it? I couldn't even sleep. I was in so much pain. There wasn't enough morphine to numb me. Yet I still believed that maybe, even when all the evidence is pointing in the opposite direction, maybe God can do something through this, and I'm willing to see it. And that's a big key, by the way, being willing. I started learning about a guy named Viktor Frankl after I was injured, and he was actually a Nazi prison camp survivor. He was a psychiatrist, a doctor, brilliant guy. Ended up losing his whole family in the Nazi concentration camps of World War II. But when he got out, he started talking about meaning. People would ask him about suffering. How do you overcome suffering? Well, here's one of the biggest things. Well, I didn't know how to tell people. He summed up in one single sentence, and it was this. He said, when it comes to suffering, he said, sometimes, in some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering at the moment it finds a meaning. In some ways, suffering ceases to be suffering. It sort of becomes something else at the moment it finds a meaning. And I remember stories about, in his book called Man's Search for Meaning, which if you haven't read the book, you're missing out. One of the best books ever written, like literally second to the Bible, in my opinion. And he talked about when he was in the concentration camps, there are men and women who were going to commit suicide because it was such a horrible place. And other inmates would come to him. Other prisoners would come to him and say, hey, Dr. Frankel, this guy's going to hang himself tonight. Can you go talk to him? You're a doctor. Maybe you can talk him into not doing it. And he would go talk to him. And one of the things he would talk to him about is this. He would say, you know, this is a really bad place. We all agree on that. This is insanity. This place is unreal. It's unimaginably horrible. But then he said, you know, but if you kill yourself, your death will have no meaning. He said, you know, if you're going to die anyway, he said, at least let the Nazis do it. Let them kill you. At least that way, your death will show the world how truly evil they are. He literally was in his own state of suffering, in the concentration camp with them, was finding another purpose within his own personal hell, if I can call it that, within that. He was one of them. But he found a mission within that place to help other people not give up. He made it out alive, and he made it out mentally healthy, which is unimaginable. The second thing, by the way, when it comes to giving up on hope, that's basically the textbook definition of despair. Despair is basically the complete loss of hope. Viktor Frankl had his own definition of despair, though. He said despair is suffering without meaning. I don't know how many of you can relate to that, but if you've ever suffered something in your life and you had no sense of meaning in it, it wasn't suffering for anything, you just couldn't figure out, it meant nothing and you were simply suffering. That's a very, very dangerous place to be. Which is why it's important, and leads into my second point, having good mentors in your life. Having a sense of meaning, finding mentors. After I got injured, a guy named Dave Reaver, who was injured in Vietnam, horribly burned, came to the medical center. And he talked to me and about 30 other guys who had been blown up and shot up and everything else. He and I became friends. He taught me how to do this. I never meant to get up on a stage and talk about these horrible things that happened in my life. But I found that every time I did, I would usually have somebody come up to me and say, hey, I tried to kill myself, but I failed. And if God can get you through that, maybe he can get me through my thing. Or, hey, I'm going through this, and I just don't know what to do, but I think I can take my next step. You don't have to have the big answer for everybody, by the way. You might not know how to help somebody. All people who are going through struggle are looking for is their next step. It's one small step is all you need to hang on. In the military, we have a chain of command. You have somebody above you, people beside you of equal rank, and those below you that you're tasked with training and leading. Dave became my mentor. Dave became my superior. I wanted to do what he did because I saw it was helping people, and so I followed him. I listened to him. Who is it in your life that you're following? Whatever you're doing, whatever you're trying to do, whatever you feel called to, who are you following that already knows how to do that? It's hard to be hopeless when you have something to live for. And I know that might sound like a really shallow, dumb statement. Well, of course people, won't do that if they have something to live for. But a lot of people probably couldn't tell me right now, what is it you're truly living for that's greater than yourself? That's actually the third piece, having a mission greater than yourself that you're living for. When Dave first put me on a stage, he pulled me up in front of 3,000 people, and I was still in burn bandages. I had never spoken before. And when I got off stage, a young lady told me that she tried to kill herself and failed, that she'd been abused and raped and molested and all these things growing up. And her boyfriend was abusive, and he dumped her, and she gave up on life, but she failed when she tried to kill herself. And then she said, if you can get through that, Brian, all that stuff, maybe God can get me through this. That's where I began finding that sense of meaning. And it tied in, it fed into the mission. I told Dave that exact night when we got back to the hotel. I said, I don't know what happened tonight, but I have to do this. And it was literally, I'm going to do this or die trying. Are you going to help me or not? It was almost like, it's my 10-minute warning. Stairway to Heaven, I figured it was appropriate for the occasion. I grew up on classic rock, what can I say? But I told Dave I have to do this, and he said, don't worry, I'll show you how. Now it's been 12 years later. That's been one of 3 major great life tragedies in my life. And I can tell you right now, I live a hopeful life. I don't always know the answers. I don't always figure things out. But every day I have hope not to give up. And so when you're thinking about your own life, think about what mission that's greater than you are you living for. One of the things that Dr. Frankl did, he had a plan in the concentration camps. By the way, his chances of getting out alive of a concentration camp was 1 in 28. Those were terrible odds. But one thing he always held on to was this belief. He said, he would tell himself, when I get out of here, I'm going to go around the world and I'm going to teach in universities about the psychology of concentration camps. He had this next thing he planned on doing, even when he was in the fire of the current thing, that the odds of him getting out were basically none. But he had that belief, and that he had this higher mission that he was going to do when he got out. And he just sustained that belief. He kept the belief when it didn't make any sense. And what did he do? When he got out and he actually did survive, he went around the world, he wrote books, and he talked about the psychology of concentration camps in an effort to help people and to help that thing never, ever happen in the world ever again. He literally had something bigger than himself he was living for. So, these are habits. Meaning. Searching for meaning. Even if you're searching and you haven't found it yet, keep searching. It's there. Having good mentors in your life. Being plugged into a church like this is perfect for that. That's why churches exist. Jesus had 12. I'm sure if the Son of God has 12, maybe I need 12 or 50, right? Good enough for Jesus, good enough for me. Mentors and a mission, something greater you're living for. So think about what you're living for. Is there something greater than yourself that doesn't feed you, or it doesn't feed your ego, it doesn't feed anything selfishly? It's something that you believe in that is bigger than you, that you're living for. I'll tell you right now, that's where the real, actual sense of fulfillment comes in. People think if they just get enough money, if they just get enough this, look, all that stuff is fun, I'll be honest with you, but it does not give you a lasting sense of meaning. Don't get to the end of your life and wonder, did my life matter? When I woke up in that ditch on the side of the road in Kandahar, I did not ask, where am I going? Because I knew I was going to die. I already knew the answer to that question. I was already a person of faith. But because I didn't ask that, something else came to mind. And when you're about to die and you know it, or you think you know it, only the most important things come straight to the forefront of your mind. And there were 2 questions that came to me. It was 1, what did I do with my life that mattered? And 2, what did I do for other people? That's all it was about. I felt, and I couldn't answer that question, because at 19, 20 years old, I felt like I lived a selfish life. And so in those moments when I know I'm not going to make it out of this country alive, in this war zone, I literally experienced the most haunting, horrific sense of regret, knowing I'm 19 or 20 years old, I'm still young, and now my life is done. It's pretty much about over. And what I felt was that I kind of felt, I can't answer those questions for my own satisfaction. What did I do with my life that mattered, and what did I do for other people? And because of that, I had that horrible sense of regret. And I thought, God, if I do make it through this, I will live every day trying to answer these questions, because I've been in gunfights, I've been blown up, you've seen it. Nothing was more terrifying to me than that moment laying in the ditch in Kandahar asking, did my life matter? I felt like I was just another soul that came into this world, didn't really do much, and then suddenly it's over with. And I felt like I had missed out. And so I want to share 2 more stories with you, and then I'll be done. My time's just about up. But I told you in the beginning of this talk, I had a story I wanted to share with you that would blow your mind a little bit and alter your perception of the struggles you may face. And I wrote this book called Redeployed, which is out there, by the way. And I dedicated it to my friend Cody, who was in Iraq. fighting the war in Iraq, and his friends got ambushed in the streets, and he actually got behind cover back to safety, but his friend was wounded in the kill zone. And he ran out into the fire to get his buddy and drag him back, and he was shot and killed trying to save his friend that day. And so when I wrote this book, I dedicated my portion of it to him. And it's a book that me and a friend wrote about getting through hard times in life. And by the way, these are $20 and they're straight out here. I want to tell you real quick about what we're doing with these. For every one of these that leaves the table today, we donate one to the military, free of charge. Because I don't want to charge the military, my friends, my brothers and sisters, who have gone through these horrible war experiences to get the help they need from someone they can relate to. But when I first started doing this, I ran out of books, and I ran out of money, and I couldn't help anybody. So I want to ask every single one of you, $20, you won't miss it. Will you be a part of something bigger? Grab one of these books on your way out. The table's right out there. Here's the interesting thing. I wrote this book in 2013. I was injured in 2006. I wrote that in 2013. And about 2 years later, I'm speaking in Indian Wells, California, just east of Palm Springs. And after this talk, this lady walks up to me who I'd never met. And my buddy's name was Cody, my friend who died. She walks up to me and she says, "Hey, Brian, I'm Cody's mom." She said, "A friend gave me your book and said you dedicated this to Cody." I said, "Yeah, I did." She said, "You know, my greatest fear," because he was her only son, so she has no kids now. She said her greatest fear was that who Cody was would be forgotten. Who he was, what he did, that was her greatest fear. And I was able to tell her, because I got blown up and injured, I ended up writing a book years later and met her on the other side of the country, small world, and I said, you know, he'll always be remembered, even if just through this book. What does it mean to be the right person at the right place at the right time? I couldn't have planned that. That's called a God thing. To help somebody else quench their fear. Now, to end this, we all ask the question of why, don't we? Well, in John chapter 9, Jesus answers the question of why. Why did this happen? Why did I go through this? There's a lot of answers, and I don't have them all. But here's one that comes straight out of Scripture in John chapter 9. John chapter 9, Jesus and the disciples, they're walking into this village, and the disciples say, "Hey, why was this guy over here born blind?" Because they met this guy, he was born blind. They say, was it his sin or is it because of his parents' sin that he was born blind? They're trying to point fingers. They're trying to place blame. They're asking why. And Jesus just shoots right back at him and he says this. He says, "These things have happened so that the works of God might be displayed in him." I don't know what you've been through in your life or what you're dealing with. But this stuff I talked about in my life today, naturally, good things don't come from my story. But I found that the works of God were beginning to get displayed in my suffering. And I've met other people who did the same. And it gave me hope. And I believe it's no different for you. If you are open and willing to see what God can do in your life and through your life into the lives of other people, you can stand firm even if everything around you is blowing up in your life. Just stand firm, trust God, be open to what he can do, even if it makes no sense. You all have been great to me today. Thank you so much for your time, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. Thank you, Brian. We just appreciate you so much. He'll be out at the table right after this service if you'd like to shake his hand. If you could take a seat really quickly and get to meet him, just know that his butt skin is on his hand. That's all we know. That's just kidding. But hey, we are honored that he's here. He got to speak. It meant a lot to us. And we just want to say, if you're new, if you came to hear Brian speak, if you're a new family, you've been coming for a couple weeks, we want you to know that at Lifeway, we're all about helping you and your family know God, be the church, and lead the change. That's what we are here for, to lead the change in yourself and then the community around you. And so what we're asking is that inside your worship guides, there's a connection card that just says welcome home. And we would love for you just to take a second and fill that out and drop it in the offering boxes on your way out. And here's our hope. The reason we're asking you to do this is because we want to connect with you. We just want to give you all the information that you would need to make the decision on if Lifeway is the church home for you. And so please take a second, fill that out, and then we have a gift for you that we want to give you, no strings attached, that you can grab from Mike, our connections pastor, right under the Lifeway Church sign on your way out. So please take advantage of that. Second, I know this is the time that all of you want to get up. You got your purses, you got everything, you want to go. Like, I know, I get it, but hear me one thing, please don't miss this. February 16th, okay? It's the third Sunday of February. We're going to have a massive Sunday. It's going to be a big day. We're shooting for 350 people. We have baptisms already signed up, ready to go in between both services. The United Weekend kids, the small group leaders, their parents are going to be here. It's going to be a high-energy photo booth. It's going to be decorations. We're kicking off a brand new series called Relationship Goals. It's like hashtag relationship goals. It's going to be a marriage series. Really, it can help anybody, even if you're single. And so we just want everyone to be here, your friends, your family, your neighbors, everyone around you. And so we're going to give you invite cards on your way out. The greeter team wants to hand them to you and invite somebody, please. And some people I've talked to, they said, how do I invite somebody to church with a card? And I'd say, don't overthink it. As you're checking out, as you're about to pay for something, as you're checking out at the restaurant, you just take out the card and say, hey, we're about to kick off a brand new series at our church. It's going to be really fun. I'd love to have you. And that's it. Don't make it hard. And just give it to them and invite them here, because we really want to see 75 people baptized, new lives in Christ, people making decisions. And the way that happens is to reach the thousands of people moving here every single month from every other state in the United States and every other city around here. And so please take a second and invite somebody this week. And I pray that Lifeway would become their church home and we would see life change in them. And last but not least, your tithes and your offerings. If you're new, this is not for you. This is for those of you who call Lifeway your church home. We get to do stuff like this because of your generosity. And so one, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for really just continuing the work that God is doing here at Lifeway. And the way you can do that, just to continue giving on whatever God's put in your heart, is on lifewaysalina.com. You can do it online, or you can give in the giving envelope inside of your worship guide, and you drop those in the worship boxes on your way out. I want to say thank you. Thank you for Brian. Thank you to everyone here today. Come back next week as we kick off Around the Campfire, and I'll be speaking on the righteousness of God. You are dismissed. We love you.